Hey there, night dwellers. Welcome back to Nightmare Frequency. Before we descend into tonight's chilling tale, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, get cozy, and prepare yourself for another journey into the unknown.
I used to laugh at people who believed in the supernatural. Ghost stories were for campfires and movies, nothing more. That's what I told myself anyway. But I stopped laughing the night something came for me, something not of this world. It was the fall of 2019. I had just moved into a small, cheap apartment on the outskirts of a forest in upstate New York. A one-bedroom unit, it was tucked into the second floor of an aging two-story house. My landlord, an older man named Mr. Galen, lived downstairs and barely spoke, except to hand over the keys and mutter something about the place having character. The first few weeks were uneventful. I unpacked, got into the rhythm of work, and took long walks through the forest trail behind the house. Autumn was in full force, and the golden red leaves made everything seem serene. But there was something off about that forest. It felt too quiet. No birdsong, no rustling animals, just an oppressive silence. I remember the first strange thing that happened. I was lying in bed around 2 a.m. when I heard footsteps above me, heavy, slow steps. The problem was, I was on the top floor. There was nothing above me but attic space, supposedly sealed off and filled with insulation. I tried to dismiss it as the house settling, old wood creaking, but the footsteps happened again, the next night and the next. One night, I mustered the courage to ask Mr. Galen about it. He stared at me with tired eyes and said, "The attic's been closed for years. No one goes up there." When I pressed him, his expression darkened. "Don't go poking around. Old houses remember things best left forgotten." That should have been my cue to move out. But I didn't. I told myself I was imagining things, until the scratching started. At first it was faint, like fingernails on plaster right above my bed. Then it got louder, angrier. I tried blasting music to drown it out. I slept with lights on. I even took sleeping pills, but the noise persisted. Always around 2:12 a.m. on the dot. Then came the smell, an awful stench of rot and mildew, like wet soil mixed with something worse, something dead. It would fill my apartment for exactly 1 minute before vanishing without a trace. That's when I started keeping a journal, trying to make sense of it all. I documented the sounds, the smells, the cold spots, the strange bruises that began appearing on my arms. But it all came to a head on Halloween night. I hadn't planned on doing anything. I had no friends in the area, and I wanted to avoid the neighborhood kids. I settled in with a blanket, a horror movie, and a bottle of wine. Around 11:30 p.m., the power went out. No wind, no rain, just darkness, sudden and complete. My phone still had battery, so I used the flashlight and made my way to the breaker box in the hallway. But the moment I opened it, I heard the attic door creak. I didn't even know where the attic door was until then. But there it was, at the end of the hallway, a narrow wooden hatch in the ceiling, now hanging ajar. I should have called the cops. I should have run, but something compelled me to go. A pull I can't explain, like a string around my spine, tugging me forward. I grabbed a flashlight and a metal rod I kept by the bed and climbed the fold-down ladder. The attic was cold, colder than it had any right to be. My breath fogged in the air. The smell of rot was overwhelming now. I shone my light around. Dust, boxes, old furniture. But then I saw something in the corner, something hunched, unmoving. At first, I thought it was a pile of clothes, but as I stepped closer, the pile twitched. I froze. My flashlight flickered. The thing slowly uncurled itself. It had no eyes, just folds of grayish skin, like a melted wax figure. Its limbs were too long, joints bending the wrong way. Its mouth, or what I assumed was a mouth, opened wide and let out a rasping breath that smelled like earthworms and blood. It didn't lunge, it didn't scream. It just stared or felt me, with a gaze that went straight to the bone. I turned and scrambled down the ladder, slamming the attic hatch shut and dragging my bookcase under it. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I moved my bed into the living room, kept every light on, and left the TV running. But the scratching returned, not from above now, but from inside the walls. I begged Mr. Galen to let me out of my lease. He refused, said breaking the contract would bind me to the place forever. I didn't understand what he meant until I started seeing the others. They came at night, shadows standing just beyond my door. Faceless, unmoving figures. They'd watch me for hours, then vanish. I tried to record them. Nothing showed up. I showed the videos to coworkers. All they saw was an empty hallway. One even laughed and said I needed sleep. By mid-November, I was barely functioning. I stopped going to work. My eyes had permanent dark circles, and I jumped at every noise. I barricaded my bedroom, covered every reflective surface, and burned sage I bought from a local shop. The clerk warned me, if it's that house, you need more than herbs. Then came the night I broke. It was snowing, hard, wind howling outside. I lay on the couch under every blanket I owned, that clinging to the rod like a lifeline. And then at 2:12 a.m., I heard the door unlock. It didn't creak or bang. It just clicked open. Slow, deliberate footsteps moved across the floor. I couldn't see anything at first, but the shadows in the room started to stretch, reaching toward me like fingers. The air grew thick. My flashlight died. My phone shut off, and then I heard my name, whispered, right in my ear. I turned, and it was there, inches from my face. The gray thing from the attic, now impossibly tall, hunched to fit inside the room. Its skin was stretched, revealing black veins and something pulsing underneath. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. It raised one hand, the fingers splitting into claws, and dragged one across my cheek. Pain bloomed, blood welled. I collapsed to the floor, paralyzed. Then someone screamed. A different voice. Older, male. The thing recoiled. It hissed and vanished into the wall like smoke. I opened my eyes and saw Mr. Galen standing in the doorway, holding an old lantern and a book that looked older than sin. I told you, he said, voice shaking. I told you not to go into the attic. He helped me up. We spent the rest of the night in his apartment, surrounded by salt lines and candlelight. He explained everything. The house was built in 1874 by a man named Elias Crowthorne, a self-proclaimed spiritualist and occultist. He believed the attic was a thin place, a weak point between our world and another. He tried to open a gate to bring something through. He succeeded. Whatever came through wasn't human. It fed on fear, sleep, and sanity. Over the decades, the house changed hands, but the thing remained, waiting. The only way to stay safe was to never acknowledge it, never open the attic, never speak its name, never break the balance. By going up there, I had invited it in. I should have left right then, but it was too late. I was bound. That's how it works. It chooses someone, marks them, and feeds slowly until there's nothing left but a husk. Unless you fight back. Mr. Galen had spent years researching counter rituals. There was one chance, a sealing ceremony that had to be performed inside the attic with the marked person at the center. Me. He warned me I might not survive, that the creature would do everything to stop us. But I agreed. I was tired of running. We prepared for 2 days. Salt, sigils, the book, the lantern. At 2 a.m., we entered the attic. It was worse than before. The moment we stepped inside, the air grew thick and warm, like a womb. The walls pulsed. The smell of decay choked me. We set the circle, lit the lantern, and Mr. Galen began chanting in a tongue I didn't recognize. At 2:12, it appeared. No longer pretending to be anything earthly, the thing unfolded from the far wall, bones cracking, body splitting and reforming. It screamed, a sound that shattered one of the attic windows and sent blood dripping from my ears. It lunged. I screamed and held the lantern high. The light burned it, literally burned its flesh. It shrieked and thrashed, but it couldn't cross the salt. Mr. Galen shouted louder, the book glowing now. And then it spoke, not aloud, not in words, but inside my mind. You let me in. You belong to me. I nearly dropped the lantern, my vision blurred. I saw things, memories that weren't mine, horrors that existed before time, cities that rose and fell in moments, stars being snuffed out. The thing wasn't just a ghost or demon. It was ancient, beyond comprehension. But I held on. I screamed the final words from the book, my voice raw, my hands trembling, and the light exploded outward. The creature howled, limbs flailing, face peeling back like wet paper. It was being pulled back, sucked through a fissure in the floor, screaming as it went. The attic shook, boards snapped, darkness swirled, and then silence. I woke in the hospital. Mr. Galen was gone. No record of him. The house had burned to the ground. They said it was a gas leak. Said I was lucky to be alive. I moved far away after that. Started over. But I never sleep with the lights off. I never listen to footsteps above me. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the clock hits 2:12 a.m., I hear a whisper in the walls. You let me in?
Story number 2.
When I took the job, I didn't think twice. Live-in caretaker for an old, remote estate in coastal Maine. The pay was great. The place looked stunning in the photos. And all I had to do was keep the grounds tidy and watch over the house through the winter. No one ever goes up there this time of year, the agency had said. Just make sure it's still standing come spring. It was called the Marrowick House, built in 1891, tucked away on a cliffside with nothing but ocean on one side and dense forest on the other. The nearest town was 10 miles away. Perfect isolation. Exactly what I needed after what happened in Boston. The house was gorgeous, in a cold, Gothic sort of way. Towering spires, tall windows, ivy clinging to stone like old veins. Inside it smelled faintly of salt and cedar. I was told the electricity had been updated, but everything else had been left authentic. No internet, spotty phone signal, and most rooms lit only by fireplace or candlelight. For the first few nights, I reveled in the quiet. It was easy to imagine I'd gone back in time. No emails, no sirens, no memories, but that didn't last. It started with the mirrors. There were dozens in the house. Large ones, ornate ones, some taller than me, all antiques, set in black and silver frames that looked warped with age. At first, I thought it was my imagination, catching movement in the glass that didn't match what I was doing. A delay, a blur, a flicker, but then it escalated. I was brushing my teeth one night when I looked up into the mirror and saw someone standing behind me. A woman, pale, long black hair. She didn't move, didn't blink. I turned around. No one was there. When I looked back, she was gone. I told myself I was tired. 2 nights later, I was walking past the hall mirror when I heard whispering. I froze. The whispering was inside the glass. I leaned closer. The mirror fogged slightly, as if something had exhaled on the other side. Then a hand pressed against the inside of the glass, long fingers, nails tapping faintly. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The hand vanished. That night I covered every mirror in the house with old bed sheets, every single one. The whispering stopped for a while. Then came the dreams. They all began the same way. I'd be standing in the foyer of Marrowick House, but it was different. Decayed, rotting, and cold. Snow fell indoors, and the mirrors were uncovered, smeared with handprints. I'd hear footsteps upstairs, soft weeping, and a voice whispering my name from every direction. In one dream, I stood before a mirror and saw myself. Only I wasn't moving. My reflection smiled, raised a hand, and beckoned me forward. When I refused, it screamed. A high, sharp sound that snapped me awake, drenched in sweat. I told myself it was just isolation, the lack of people. Cabin fever. Until I found the diary. It was buried beneath a loose floorboard in the attic. Leather-bound, brittle, written in delicate cursive by someone named Elizabeth Wren. She had lived in the house in 1926. The entries began normal, describing her marriage, the beauty of the sea, the loneliness. But then the tone shifted. She wrote of hearing voices from the mirrors, seeing people who weren't there, of the glass breathing when she was near, of waking up to find the mirrors uncovered, no matter how many times she hid them. Her last entry was short. They say she was a reflection once, long ago, that she became unstuck. Now she needs someone to take her place. The glass is thin, thinner every night. I don't know how much longer I can resist. There was a dried smear across the page. Blood or ink, I couldn't tell. I tried to leave that night, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, but when I reached the front door, it was gone. Not locked, gone. Just a wall where the door had been. Every exit had vanished. Windows bricked over. The cellar stairs crumbled into a black pit. And the mirrors, all uncovered. My own sheets gone. Every surface reflective again. Every one of them watching me. I tried smashing them, but when I struck one with a fire poker, it didn't break. It bled. A thin stream of dark red trickled down the glass. I dropped the poker and backed away. Behind me, another mirror whispered, "Come closer." I turned to run, but the hallway was gone. The house had changed, shifted. The walls twisted. Doors led to different places. Time meant nothing. Days passed without sun. I started seeing her fully now, the woman from the mirror, pale, gaunt, floating inches above the ground. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth too wide. She watched from the far end of every room. She never touched me. Not at first, but every night she came closer, closer. I tried to fight it, wrote notes to myself, chanted anything that sounded holy. I tried to cover the mirrors again with furniture, with curtains, but they would uncover themselves. One night, I woke up inside the mirror. It wasn't a dream. I swear to you, I was on the other side of the glass, pounding on it while my reflection smiled back at me, curling its fingers around my face. It leaned in and whispered, "One must remain." Then I was back, on the floor, cold, alone. But something had changed. I don't see her anymore. I don't hear the whispers. The mirrors are just mirrors again. But my reflection, it's not me. Not quite. It moves just a second too late. Smiles when I don't. Tilts its head the wrong way. I caught it watching me when I wasn't looking. I don't think I ever really left that side. I think I'm still there somewhere, behind the glass. And whatever's walking around in my body now, it's not me. If you ever go to Merriwick House, if you ever find yourself looking into a mirror and feeling like something's looking back, don't lean in. Don't smile. Don't blink, because she's still in there. And she's always looking for the next one.
Story number 3.
It started with a dare. My friends and I were camping near an abandoned mining town in Colorado. What was left of it, anyway. Most of the buildings had collapsed into husks, eaten away by snow and time. Locals called it Gorefield Hollow, though the name never showed up on maps. A mining accident had supposedly wiped out the entire workforce in the 1800s, and the place had been cursed ever since. We didn't believe in curses. We were city kids, fresh out of college, looking for thrills. My friend Kyle was the one who brought it up, the tunnel. Legend says if you walk the old mine shaft alone at night, he said, grinning, you'll hear the last words of the men who died in there. They say the walls still echo with their screams. Naturally, someone had to try it. Naturally, that someone ended up being me. I waited until after midnight, wrapped in a hoodie and armed with a flashlight and a flask. The others stayed behind at the fire, drunk and laughing, watching my silhouette disappear into the fog. The mine shaft was easy enough to find, a ragged black wound in the side of the mountain, boarded up decades ago. But the boards had been pried off. Whether by animals or idiots like us, I couldn't tell. I took one breath and stepped inside. It was colder than I expected. The kind of cold that sinks into your marrow. My flashlight beam caught wooden support beams, rusted rails, and long-forgotten tools half buried in rock dust. The air tasted of iron. I walked in for what felt like 10 minutes. The world behind me disappeared. Just darkness and silence ahead. I started to wonder if I should turn back when I heard the first whisper. "Get out!" I froze. My flashlight flickered. The whisper came again, this time closer. "Get out!" I spun around. No one. The air shifted, sudden and violent, like a breath from the deep. My light died. Total darkness swallowed me. Then came the voices, dozens of them, moaning, screaming, pleading, men, women, even children, all around me. The walls seemed to contract, as if the mine itself were alive and breathing. I ran, or tried to. My foot caught on something. I fell hard, face first into dirt and bone. Yes, bone. Dozens of skeletal remains half buried in the tunnel floor. Their mouths still frozen in silent screams. Some had deep gouges in their ribs, like something had torn them open from the inside. Something was down here, and it wasn't human. Suddenly I saw a light, distant, flickering, pale blue. It was coming from a side shaft I hadn't noticed before. Desperate for any sign of escape, I followed it. The light grew brighter as I approached a cavern. Inside was something I will never forget. A circle of corpses, fresh, not skeletal, stood upright in a ritual pattern. Eyes sewn shut, lips stitched, strings of black hair wrapped around their necks, binding them together like a sick macabre garland. In the center stood a figure. It was draped in a veil of skin, stitched together faces that dangled like trophies. Its limbs were long, insect-like, but it stood on 2 legs, bent backward at the knees. No eyes, no mouth. Just a hole where the face should be, a hole that breathed. I didn't move. Couldn't. It turned toward me, not physically, but I felt it turn. Felt its awareness sweep over me like a heat wave. The corpses twitched, jerking toward me in unison. I ran. No sense of direction, just panic. The tunnels twisted, bent, led nowhere. But the thing followed. I heard its clicking limbs, the skitter of claw on stone. the sound of breathing that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. At one point, I stumbled through a rotting door into a collapsed room. Inside on the floor was an old journal. I don't know why I grabbed it, maybe instinct, but I tucked it into my hoodie and kept running. Eventually, I saw light again, dull and golden. It was morning. I crawled out of the tunnel like an animal, scratched and bleeding, shoes missing, coat torn. My friends found me an hour later. They said I'd been gone all night. But here's the thing. They hadn't heard me scream. They hadn't seen me run back. They said I never left the campsite. Not once. I should have left Colorado. I should have thrown the journal away. But I didn't. I read it. It belonged to a miner named Isaac Crow, dated October 1873. He described a cave-in that unearthed something unnatural, a pit filled with bone and shadow. He called it the Hollow One. It fed on souls, mimicked voices, and lived between echoes. It could only be summoned by a ritual involving sewn eyes, hair, and blood. Crow and his team tried to trap it, seal it, bury it. They failed. He wrote one final passage. It knows your name once you hear it speak. If you run, it follows. If you look for it, it finds you. But if it wears your skin, it becomes you. I don't know if I'm still me anymore. Since I left that mine, things have gotten worse. My reflection doesn't match me anymore. It lags. It grins when I don't. My voice echoes wrong in empty rooms like someone else is repeating it just a hair too late. I've started finding hair in my bed. Long, black hair. I'm not sure if I ever really came back from that mine. And last night, I dreamed of the Hollow One again. Only this time, it wasn't in the mine. It was in my bedroom, standing at the foot of my bed, breathing softly. It leaned over and whispered in that stitched, wet voice, "You brought me home."
Story number 4.
I've always been a skeptic. Ghost stories, urban legends, the supernatural. I chalked it all up to overactive imaginations and boredom. That changed last fall when I took a teaching position in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. It was a quiet town, buried deep in forest. The kind of place with no streetlights after 9 p.m., where everyone knows each other and the silence feels thick. The school was small, and the house they gave me to rent was even smaller. A one-story cottage surrounded by dense woods, old as the town itself. The locals called it the widow's house. They didn't tell me why, not directly, but they'd fall quiet when I brought it up. One of the older teachers, Mrs. Harlan, slipped one day and said, "They never stay more than one winter." I didn't understand what she meant until the first night. It began with the knocking. 3 soft taps on the bedroom window at 3:13 a.m. I live alone, no animals outside. The forest out back is too dense to walk through, but the knocking was real, measured, human. I ignored it. The next night, the knocks came again, this time from the kitchen door. I got up, turned on the lights, stepped outside with a flashlight. No footprints in the frost, nothing but trees. I told myself it was kids playing tricks. The third night, the knocking came from inside the house. I bolted upright in bed and stared at the bedroom door. 3 sharp knocks like bone on wood. Tap, tap, tap. I called out, trembling. "Who's there?" No answer. I opened the door and found the hallway empty, but the kitchen chair had been pulled out, facing the window, as if someone had been watching me sleep. That was just the beginning. Things escalated fast. Lights would flicker at precisely 3:13 a.m. My phone battery would die no matter how much I charged it. Water ran from the taps by itself, brown and smelling like rot. But the worst part was the voice, low, feminine, not whispering, but murmuring right at the edge of hearing. I'd hear it when I was brushing my teeth, or doing dishes, or walking past mirrors. I couldn't make out the words, but it was always the same cadence, always the same hour. I started researching the house's history. It belonged to a woman named Clara Bellwether. In 1912, she was accused of witchcraft and murdering her 3 children during the first frost of winter. They said she went mad after her husband disappeared, locked herself in the house, and one by one drowned her children in the washtub. When they found her, she'd gouged out her own eyes. They buried her in the woods behind the house. No stone, no ceremony. The legend said she still walked during the first frost, knocking on windows, calling out for someone to replace her, to see for her. I didn't believe any of it until I found the washtub in my crawl space. It was metal, rusted, and filled with black water. I swear to you, when I looked into it, I saw my own face staring back, But I wasn't moving. My reflection blinked slowly, then smiled, and the water whispered, "She needs your eyes." I moved out the next day, packed up what I could, left the rest behind. But something followed me. Back in my apartment in the city, the knocking continued. Still at 3:13 a.m. Different windows, different doors, the same 3 knocks. I tried therapy, exorcisms, sage, holy water. Nothing worked. Then I made the mistake of looking out the window one night when the knocking came. I should never have looked. She was standing there, Clara Bellwether, thin, worn, hollow sockets where her eyes should have been. Her mouth hung open wider than it should, jaw sagging unnaturally. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, then raised her hand and pointed at me. Behind her I could see children, gray, soaked, eyeless, watching. That night I woke up with my bedroom window open, muddy footprints across the floor, and a mirror shattered from the inside out. I haven't slept since. I see her everywhere now, in car windows, in puddles and reflections that don't match. Always closer, always waiting. I don't know how much longer I can hold out, but last night, the mirror didn't show my face, it showed hers, and she whispered, "You've seen enough." I think tonight she'll take them. My eyes. If you ever hear 3 knocks at 3:13 in the morning, don't answer. Don't move. Don't even look. Because once she knows you can see her, it's already too late.
Story number 5.
I should have never taken the job at Black Hollow Lodge. I was broke, desperate, and trying to outrun the wreckage of my life. So when an old university contact offered me seasonal work managing a wilderness retreat up in the Catskills, no guests, just maintenance and presence, I jumped on it. It was only for 3 months, October through December. Easy money for living alone in a beautiful old lodge surrounded by untouched forest. But Black Hollow wasn't beautiful. It was suffocating. The structure was old, Victorian, all stone and shadow, with too many hallways and locked rooms that hadn't been opened in decades. The previous caretaker had disappeared suddenly last winter, and no one seemed to know why. I was told he left in the middle of the night. No note, no contact. They chalked it up to loneliness and mental health. The woods could do that to people, they said. I figured I was stronger than that. At first, it was peaceful. Days filled with minor repairs, firewood stacking and writing. Nights were long and quiet, too quiet. But I liked the solitude. For a while. Then the dreams started. They always began the same. I'd wake up in my bed, but the world was wrong, frozen in time, moonlight hanging still in the window, shadows too heavy, and the same sound over and over, the rustling of leaves from inside the walls. Sometimes I'd hear whispering in a voice too low to understand, always coming from behind locked doors. I chalked it up to stress. Maybe my mind was unraveling, like the last caretaker's, until I found the cellar. I hadn't noticed the door before. It was hidden behind an old armoire, sealed shut with iron nails and symbols I didn't recognize. I should have left it alone, but curiosity is louder than fear. I pried it open. The stairs led down into the earth, far deeper than a lodge basement should have gone. The air was heavy, ancient. At the bottom was a stone room lit by melted candles. In the center, a circle of antlers surrounding a patch of dirt that looked freshly turned. The walls were covered in carvings, stick figures with hollow eyes and crooked limbs dancing around a tree. A large tree. One that looked exactly like the one behind the lodge. I backed out. I nailed the door shut. Tried to forget it, but something had changed. That night, I heard footsteps on the second floor. Slow, scraping, barefoot steps. I lived alone. When I got up to check, I found wet leaves on the hallway floor and long, muddy footprints that vanished before reaching the stairs. After that, I didn't sleep. Lights turned on by themselves. My phone erased all its photos. My name began appearing in the margins of old books I hadn't opened. And always, that sound. Rustling leaves. One night I caught something watching me from the woods, a figure tall, impossibly thin, with limbs like branches. Its face was featureless, just smooth bark. It didn't move, just watched. I locked every door, boarded the windows, refused to sleep. I finally called the lodge's owner, left dozens of voicemails. No answer. I drove into town the next day to quit, but the town was gone. I mean, literally gone. The road didn't lead to it anymore. Just trees, as if it had never existed. I turned back in shock and found that the road behind me was also gone. Only forest. Black Hollow Lodge was the only thing left. I was trapped. I started to lose time. I'd black out and wake up in different rooms, holding objects I didn't remember picking up, dolls made of twigs and hair, pieces of antler, stones arranged in circles. At one point, I woke up outside, standing in front of the tree behind the lodge. My hands were covered in dirt. Something had been buried at its roots. I dug. It was a man's body, rotting, face eaten away by insects and time. But I recognized the jacket. It was the last caretaker. There was a note pinned to his chest with a nail. It chooses one each year, one to watch, one to feed, one to stay. Suddenly I understood. This wasn't a job. It was a tradition. The lodge needed someone. It lured people in, broke them, buried them. And I was this year's offering. I tried burning the lodge, poured gasoline over every inch of the wood, lit the match. Nothing caught. The fire fizzled out like I'd imagined it. The walls laughed, not audibly, but I felt them laughing. I stopped trying to escape. I waited for the figure to come for me. It didn't. It just watched from the woods every night, closer and closer, never blinking. And in the morning, there were more footprints, more leaves, more whispers. I think I'm changing. My skin feels brittle, like bark. When I speak, I hear echoes. My shadow stretches too far. The tree behind the lodge has begun to pulse, to breathe. I found a mirror today. My reflection is wrong, longer, thinner, smiling when I'm not. I think the lodge has chosen someone else now. I think it's inviting someone new. If you're reading this and you ever see an ad for a quiet winter job at a lodge in the Catskills, don't go, because once the forest knows your name, it never forgets. And the hollow one always needs a keeper.
Story number 6.
I inherited the house when my grandfather died. I'd never met him. My father never talked about him, only said he was not the kind of man you want to remember. The house, located in a remote village in northern Maine, came with no strings, no mortgage, no neighbors, just an old key and a note written in my grandfather's jagged handwriting. Do not stay past the 7th night. If you hear the knocking, never answer. I thought it was a joke, a creepy flourish from a man I never knew. But I was broke, between jobs, and in desperate need of solitude. So I packed a bag and drove up. The house was ancient. 3 stories of leaning, gray timber and rotting shutters, sagging like it was sighing under the weight of its history. The furniture was covered in sheets. The walls were lined with portraits whose eyes seemed too real. There was dust in every corner and an unbearable silence that pressed on me like water pressure. I made a game out of cleaning it. Day 1, I cleared the kitchen. Day 2, I tackled the attic. Day 3, the cellar. That was a mistake. The door to the cellar was locked from the outside, chained and bolted like someone had wanted whatever was inside to stay inside. I should have taken that as a warning, but curiosity got the better of me. The moment I unlatched it, I heard something move in the dark, not rats, not pipes. The smell hit me next, earth and rot. I stepped inside with a flashlight and found nothing but shelves, tools, and something buried beneath a tarp. When I pulled it back, I found dozens of animal skulls arranged in a circle. Each one had strange symbols carved into it, filled with what looked like dried blood. In the center was a large cracked mirror, blackened at the edges like it had been burned. As I stared into it, the flashlight flickered, and for a split second I saw something behind me. But when I turned, nothing was there. That night the knocking started. It came from inside the walls, a slow, deliberate rhythm. Not rats, not pipes, knuckles. I tried to sleep, but it returned the next night and the next, louder, closer. On the 4th night, I found a message scratched into the hallway wall with what looked like a fingernail. 5 days left. He comes when you forget. I didn't understand it. I thought maybe I was losing it. The house was getting to me. I went through my grandfather's belongings and found a journal, dozens of entries scrawled in manic handwriting, pages and pages detailing the night guest. It comes for the bloodline, one page read. It lives in mirrors, in memory, in the knock you answer without thinking. He took my brother, my mother, my wife, all on the 7th night. I was the last. I thought it was dementia, delusions, until I noticed something disturbing in the photos on the mantel. In every picture of my grandfather, family portraits, holidays, birthdays, there was always a figure in the background, dressed in black, faceless, tall and motionless, like it had been painted in afterward. In one photo, it was standing behind my grandfather, its hand on his shoulder. I checked the back of the picture. Christmas Eve 1972, the night before she disappeared. By the fifth night, every mirror in the house had blackened. The reflections didn't move when I did. My face looked unfamiliar, drawn, thinner, eyes darker. I avoided mirrors altogether. But the knocking, it never stopped. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks again. Always at midnight. Sometimes from the walls, sometimes the doors, and sometimes from inside the room. I set up cameras, tried to record it. Nothing showed. Just audio, soft breathing, whispering, and always the same phrase repeating backward. You are the last. You must remember. On the 6th night, I dreamed of a dark hallway. The walls were covered in old portraits, my family, distorted and dead-eyed. At the end stood the mirror from the basement, cracked and pulsing like a heartbeat. My reflection was gone, and in its place stood him. Not just a figure, but an abs in the shape of a man. A silhouette of rotting cloth and stretched skin, his face a hollow indentation that seemed to pull in light. He raised a hand and pointed to me. I woke up screaming. I tried to leave, packed a bag, ran to the car, but the keys were missing. So was the front door. The house wouldn't let me go. On the 7th night, the knocking stopped. At first, I thought it was over, but then the silence became unbearable. It hurt. A pressure in my ears, in my chest, like I was being pulled inward. I looked at the blackened mirror in the hallway, and this time I saw him standing behind me. He whispered my name in a voice that sounded like my father's. Then he knocked once, softly, on the inside of the mirror. I ran to the basement to smash the mirror, but it wasn't there. The entire basement had changed. No shelves, no tools, just walls of raw stone and hundreds of handprints painted in blood. In the center stood the mirror, now whole and glowing faintly. I approached. My reflection didn't return. Instead, I saw every member of my family, all standing behind the glass. Eyes missing, mouth stitched shut. They pointed at me in unison. Behind them the night guest stood, his arms wide, as if welcoming me home. He reached forward, and so did I. I don't remember breaking the mirror. I don't remember waking up, but I'm still here, alone. The doors are gone. The windows show only fog, and at midnight, the knocking begins again, but now it's from inside me. In my ears, my throat, my chest. I think he's in here now, and I can't remember my own name. If you ever inherit something from a family you've never met, don't take it. Don't visit. Don't even touch the key, because some homes don't belong to the living, and some reflections never give you back.
Story number 7.
They told me not to go past the cairns. Every villager I asked gave the same warning. Stay out of the northern moor. If you pass the stone markers, don't look back. And whatever you do, don't follow the lights. I'm a field researcher in folklore and oral history. I've heard every ghost story and regional myth you can imagine. Most are exaggerated tales to keep children in bed at night. But the warnings in the small Scottish village of Invermarsh were different. They weren't meant to scare. They were meant to protect. And I should have listened. I arrived to document local stories, mapping pre-Christian superstitions and ancient burial rites in isolated settlements. Invermarsh was ideal, founded in the 1200s, tucked between jagged cliffs and rolling, mist-covered hills. Only 24 residents remained. They were kind, but guarded. They spoke of the Watcher on the Moor. No one said what it was, only that it arrived when called, and never left empty-handed. They spoke of lights that danced through the fog at night, luring travelers towards something no one ever returned from. Every few decades, someone disappeared, always during the waning moon, always after seeing the lights. On my 5th night there, I saw them. Faint, bluish orbs drifting just beyond the northern cairns, those ancient piles of stone that marked the boundary between village and moor. They hovered like will-o'-the-wisps, flickering with a rhythm that felt intentional. I was compelled to follow. Not by logic or curiosity, but something deeper. Like the lights knew me, like they were waiting. I crossed the cairns. The moment I did, everything changed. The air turned heavy, silent. The mist grew dense, muffling every sound. My flashlight barely pierced the gray. I walked for what felt like an hour, chasing the lights deeper into the moor until I found a clearing. In the center was an ancient stone circle, blackened with time, etched in runes older than language. In the middle stood a massive standing stone, cracked straight through, with something bound inside by chains. A figure, humanoid, but wrong. Its skin was pale and bloated like it had been waterlogged for centuries. Its face was featureless. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Just a smooth mask of flesh stretched too tight, and yet I felt it watching me. The lights circled above it like insects. I couldn't move. My body was frozen. My thoughts jumbled. Then I heard the whisper, not in the inside my head. You called. I have come. The trade is due. I hadn't spoken. I hadn't called anything, but it didn't matter. I blinked, and suddenly I was back at the inn, lying in bed, shivering. Mud caked on my boots. I thought I had dreamt the whole thing, until I saw the black mark on my chest. A perfect circle of runes burned into my skin. The villagers wouldn't speak to me after that. They locked their doors when I passed. They turned off their porch lights they knew. I began losing time. Hours vanished without memory. I'd wake up standing in the woods. My reflection would lag behind in the mirror just for a second. Once, I found an old bone under my pillow, sharpened like a dagger, and the lights came back, every night, closer. On the 7th day, I couldn't leave. My car wouldn't start. The road out was gone, replaced by endless heather and mist. The innkeeper's wife finally broke her silence. She stood at my door weeping and said, "The last one to follow the lights was in 1953. We found only his tongue. Don't sleep tonight. If it finds you dreaming, it takes your soul." I didn't sleep, but it didn't matter. At 3:11 a.m., I heard the chains breaking, one by one. Then the whisper came again, louder now, as if spoken through hundreds of mouths layered atop each other. "The seal is broken. The debt is mine to collect." I turned and it was there. Not outside, inside. The figure, wet, hollow, crawling down the ceiling like a spider, its limbs bending backwards. From its smooth face a mouth opened, not by splitting but by unraveling, revealing rows of teeth made of bone and rusted nails. I ran. I don't remember how I got to the church, only that the priest, one of the last, sealed me inside with salt and iron and screamed through the door, "You crossed the cairns. You answered its call. You're marked now. It won't stop, not until it drags you back." I've lived in a different place every week since. Never sleep more than 2 hours. I cover mirrors. I never travel alone. Still I see the lights, in puddles, in windows, in my dreams. I feel the chains now, not on it, on me. And when the moon wanes, I hear that voice, soft as rot. You followed, you fed it. Now you walk the moor. If you ever see blue lights in the fog, don't follow them, because once you cross the cairns, you never truly come back.
Story number 8.
I first heard about the mirror game on an old forum for urban legends and lost rituals. A post buried deep in a thread from 2006 simply read, "Play at midnight. Stand between 2 mirrors. Light a candle. Say your full name 3 times, but never break eye contact. And no matter what you hear, don't turn around." The post had no replies, just one upvote. Most users assumed it was a joke. But I played it, because I didn't believe in anything, and because I was desperate. It was late December, and I had just lost everything. My job, my partner, and my apartment. I was crashing at my childhood home, the only place left for me to go. My parents had died years ago, and the house was scheduled for demolition in the spring. Empty, freezing, full of bad memories, perfect for a game that supposedly opened a door to something beyond. I found 2 large mirrors in the attic and set them up in the hallway upstairs, facing each other. I lit a white candle, checked the time, 11:59 p.m. At exactly midnight, I stood between the mirrors, one behind and one in front, the candle trembling in my hand. I said my name, once, twice, 3 times. For a moment, nothing happened, just the infinite reflection stretching into darkness behind me. Then the reflection changed. It wasn't me anymore. It looked like me, same hair, same eyes, but it was smiling, and I wasn't. Its smile widened unnaturally, stretching to its cheeks. Then the mouth moved, even though I didn't speak. "Turn around." I didn't. Every hair on my body stood up. The candle flickered violently. I stared into the false me, trying not to blink. Then I heard footsteps. Behind me. Slow, bare feet on old wood. "Don't turn around." I remembered the rule. I clenched my jaw and didn't move. The reflection changed again. The hallway behind me was now black, darker than darkness, like the mirrors no longer reflected this world. Shapes began to shift in the corners of the glass. Eyes, fingers. A whisper so soft I thought it came from inside my head. "Turn around and see what you really are." I blinked. Just once. and suddenly everything was wrong. I wasn't standing anymore. I was watching myself stand there. But I couldn't move. I wasn't in my body. I was trapped in the reflection. The thing that looked like me stepped forward out of the mirror holding the candle. I could see it now. Its eyes were all wrong. Black pits with something moving just beneath the surface. It turned to face me inside the glass. It winked, then blew out the candle. The hallway went pitch black. When the lights came back, sometime later, maybe hours, I was lying on the floor, alone. The candle was gone. The mirrors were shattered. At first, I thought it hadn't worked, that I had blacked out from stress or fear, until the voice started. At first, it was faint, like someone humming behind the walls. Then I began to hear it clearly. My voice, but saying things I never thought. It knew things, secrets, feelings I never told anyone. It would whisper them to me at night, just as I was drifting off. You wish you had died with them. You'll never be loved again. You called me. I'm here now. Every mirror I passed showed flickers, wrong expressions, twisted movements, mouths still moving when I wasn't. I smashed them all. Didn't matter. The reflections didn't go away. They just moved. Into windows. Into puddles. Into my eyes. I went to a priest. He laughed nervously, thought I was mentally ill. I saw a therapist. She said trauma could manifest in hallucinations. But one day during our session, she looked into the small mirror on her desk and screamed. She wouldn't tell me what she saw. She just ran from the room and quit a week later. It's been 6 months since the game. I don't sleep. Because when I do, I dream of glass corridors and thousands of versions of me, screaming behind walls they can't break. Some are burned, some are eaten. Some are just empty, their skin hanging loosely, hollow-eyed, grinning. And always walking among them is the one that got out, the reflection. It lives in my life now. Answers my phone, walks my streets, stares out of my apartment window with a smile that isn't mine. Sometimes I hear it laughing from the other room. I don't go near mirrors anymore, not even by accident. But tonight I saw something in the TV screen, a shape, standing behind me, smiling, holding a candle. If you ever find the post about the mirror game, don't play. Because if you open the doorway, something will always step through, and it will never be you.
Story number 9.
I work in salvage and demolition. Most people don't understand what that really means. They think it's just bulldozers and sledgehammers. But what I do is more delicate. I dismantle old buildings piece by piece, wood, metal, glass, for historical resale. I found antiques, journals, even cash tucked inside walls. But nothing ever haunted me until the Marrow House. It was a late spring job up in Vermont. A centuries-old colonial farmhouse deep in the woods, left abandoned for decades. The owner had disappeared in the 80s, and the property was bought by a land developer planning to tear it down and build rental cabins. My crew didn't want the job. Something about the house made them uneasy. The foreman, a guy I've known for 10 years, told me flat out, I'm not touching that place. It feels wrong. He was pale when he said it. I should have listened, but the payout was too good, and I don't scare easy. The house was strange from the start. Overgrown with thorny vines, the front porch half collapsed. The walls were covered in something thick and dark, what I assumed was mildew, but it looked more like scabs. The air was thick with the smell of rust and old meat. Inside, it was worse. The furniture was gone. The floorboards bowed inward, like the house was breathing. Every wall had strange etchings scratched into the wood, circles, symbols, figures with no faces. The rooms were colder than outside, even in the midday sun. But the basement was hell. There was a trapdoor beneath the kitchen, padlocked and bolted with heavy iron. Not like someone wanted to keep people out, but like they wanted to keep something in. Naturally, I opened it. I remember the sound when it opened, like a breath exhaled after a long time. The stairs were stone, slick with something sticky. The smell was unbearable, wet earth, blood, mold. At the bottom there were cages, 6 of them, rusted shut, each one barely big enough to hold a child. Inside one was a skeleton, arms broken, skull caved in. Its mouth was open wide like it died screaming. Behind the cages a stone altar, covered in dried blood and bones, and behind that a wall painted in black pitch, covered in hundreds of names, all scratched out except one. Burial 7, E. Marrow. I didn't touch anything. I climbed out, sick to my stomach, and locked the trapdoor again. I should have left. I should have called someone. But that night, I came back. Not by choice. I woke up at 2:13 a.m., standing in the kitchen, barefoot. The trapdoor was open. The house had pulled me in, and something had come out. I didn't see it at first, only heard it, low rasping breaths that echoed from the corners of the house where no light reached. Then I smelled it, rot, wet soil, old, sour blood. I turned, and it was there, tall, twisted. Its skin stretched too tight over a skeleton that looked human, but wasn't. Its arms were too long, hands dragging along the floor, nails like splinters of bone. Its face, it had none. Just a gaping slit where the mouth should be, and hollow holes for eyes, filled with writhing worms. It didn't chase me, it watched me, and whispered in a voice like dry leaves. You opened it. You are the marrow now. I don't remember leaving, just running through the woods until I collapsed. Since then, I haven't been the same. I see things in mirrors that aren't mine, my eyes bleeding, my skin flayed. I hear scratching beneath my floorboards, even in the apartment where I live now, 1,000 miles away. Every night at 2:13, I wake up standing somewhere I shouldn't be. Sometimes it's the closet. Once it was the edge of the roof. Last night, it was in the bathtub, with dirt under my fingernails and blood on my hands. The doctors say it's sleepwalking, but I know better. Because every time I try to sleep, I dream of the altar. And that thing, crawling up from the black, saying one word, burial. I dug too deep. I uncovered something that should have stayed hidden, and now it's wearing me. If anyone finds this, don't go to the marrow house. Don't open the trapdoor, because when you disturb the bones, they remember, and they want out.
Story number 10.
I used to be a freelance video editor. Weddings, indie films, YouTube content, whatever paid. My life wasn't exciting, but it was stable, quiet. I worked from my apartment, alone most days, staring into timelines and frame-by-frame edits. That quiet ended on October 19th. It started with a simple email. Subject, please restore urgent. Body, hi, found this corrupted video. Friend said you're the best. Can you fix it? We'll pay double. No name, no signature, just a link to a download. I should have deleted it. But the money was tempting, so I downloaded the file. Replay. Move. It was broken, just static and garbled frames. I loaded it into my editing software, started scrubbing through, and noticed something strange. Every 10 seconds a clear frame appeared. A room, a woman, pale, mouth open in a scream. Then more static, another 10 seconds. Now the woman was closer to the camera, then closer, then looking right at me. I stopped, saved my project, stepped away. When I came back, the file had renamed itself, uwatch.move. I hadn't changed anything. That night I started hearing sounds. Not in my apartment, in my headphones, even when they were unplugged. Soft crying, then laughter, then a voice, distorted, garbled, whispering right in my ear, play it again. I deleted the file. It came back. Different name. Same size, same folder. My recycling bin emptied itself. I smashed the hard drive. It reappeared on my desktop background, a single frame of the woman's face, twisted in terror, blood running from her eyes. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. My phone camera would turn on randomly, flash blinding me. Once I caught a frame of something behind me, a figure, tall and pale, crawling on the ceiling. I moved out, got a new laptop, changed everything, thought I was free, until one night my screen flickered on by itself. Replay, move. No file, just the video playing on loop. My reflection in the screen, and behind me the woman, her mouth opening wider than any human should. I turned around. No one was there, but the walls were bleeding. Digital static bled into reality. Lights stuttered in patterns. I lost 3 hours and woke up in the bathtub, dry, fully clothed, hands shaking. I tried everything, priests, coders, psychics. One hacker friend traced the file's origin. His face went pale. This shouldn't exist. It's not hosted anywhere. It's not on any server. It's not from the internet. It's embedded in your signal. It's in your bandwidth. He vanished a week later. Now, I see things in reflections. Her. Not just the woman anymore, but something using her face. It changes every time. My mother, my ex, myself. But it always has those eyes. Black, empty, hollow. Last week I woke up and my monitor had one sentence burned into the screen. It's not the file, it's the watching. She's in everything now. Every camera, every screen. I can't use my phone. I don't look at monitors. I don't watch TV. I live in the dark. But even in the dark, sometimes I see static on the walls. Sometimes I hear her breathing. I'm sending this from a public library one last time. If you get a link, don't open it. Don't try to be brave. Don't play the file, because once you've seen her, she sees you, and no amount of light will keep her away.